We think of freedom as this big, abstract thing: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But sometimes, freedom is smaller. It's the freedom to not smile when you're having a bad day, to drive in whatever shoes you want, or to believe that time travel movies are harmless fun. It's the simple, unspoken right to live your life without a bureaucrat questioning your choices. Well, get ready, because we're about to tour the globe to find the laws that would make an American's head explode. 1. How much should a speeding ticket really cost? In America, it's a fixed number, but Finland has a far more personal and potentially terrifying answer. Their penalties are linked to your income. This day fine system means the ticket is calculated from your daily earnings, leading to some truly mind-boggling fines for the wealthy. One businessman was famously slapped with a nearly $60,000 penalty for going just 14 miles per hour over the limit. It's a system designed for equity that an American might see as a punishment for success. 2. Smiling is usually a choice, a reflection of your mood. But in the Italian city of Milan, it can be a legal requirement. A bizarre old law, never officially taken off the books, states that citizens must smile at all times. The only exceptions are for funerals and hospital visits. While you won't see the smile police writing tickets today, the very existence of a law that dictates your facial expression is a level of government intrusion that feels like a prank, but isn't. 3. Imagine a government so worried about people disrespecting the past that it decides to ban time travel. In movies. This isn't the plot of a sci-fi dystopia. It's a real policy in China. The state media regulators have effectively outlawed films and shows that feature time travel, claiming they treat serious history in a frivolous way. This means no Back to the Future for Beijing. For a culture that loves a good time-bending blockbuster, this is a truly alien concept of creative control. 4. Thinking of naming your child something creative? Maybe Apple or Pilot? Well, if you live in Denmark, you'd better check the government's pre-approved list first. There are about 7,000 official names to choose from. If you want something else, you need to file for special permission. And unusual spellings or names deemed too strange are routinely rejected. It's a government-enforced system to prevent playground bullying that would make an American parent's head spin. 5. Kids in America grow up with a constant barrage of commercials for toys and sugary cereal. But in Norway, the government has made it illegal to advertise anything directly to children under 18. This complete ban on TV, radio, and online ads targeting kids comes from the belief that they are vulnerable to commercial pressure. It's a quiet, protected childhood, free from the pester power that fuels a huge chunk of the American economy. 6. For a long time, the capital of Iceland, Reykjavik, was a city without dogs. Not because people didn't like them, but because owning one was completely illegal until 1984. The ban was a serious public health measure to stop the spread of dangerous parasites from canines to humans. Even after it was lifted, dog ownership was strictly regulated for years. It's wild to think of a major city where the simple joy of owning a dog was forbidden by law. 7. The Netherlands offers a masterclass in legal contradiction, especially in Amsterdam's famous coffee shops. You can legally purchase and smoke cannabis inside, but if you try to light up a regular tobacco cigarette, you're breaking the law. A nationwide tobacco ban means you can't even mix tobacco into your joint. It creates a bizarre paradox where a drug that's illegal in most of the world is fine, but a perfectly legal cigarette will get you in trouble. 8. There's a crime on the books in the Philippines called unjust vexation. It's as beautifully vague as it sounds, essentially making it illegal to deliberately annoy someone to a significant degree. This catch-all charge is used when no other specific crime fits. It means that a petty argument with a neighbor or a prank gone wrong could theoretically land you in court. It's the ultimate weapon for anyone who has ever thought, there ought to be a law against that guy. 9. That classic American image of the soul-crushing windowless office? That entire architectural concept would be illegal in Germany. Their workplace safety laws are famously specific, mandating that every office must have a source of natural daylight and a view of the outside. The government has legally recognized that staring at a beige wall all day is bad for the human spirit. It's a worker's right that most Americans have never even thought to ask for. 10. The citizens of Monaco, home to the world's most glamorous casinos, are legally barred from gambling in them. The very industry that built their nation's wealth is entirely off-limits to the people who actually live there. This rule was established by a prince in the 19th century to protect his own subjects from financial ruin while happily taking money from foreigners. It's a level of do as I say, not as I do that has been elevated to national policy. 11. Planning a summer road trip through the beautiful Spanish countryside? You might want to consult a fashion guide before you get behind the wheel. It's not about looking good, it's about complying with the law. Spanish traffic police can and will fine you for driving in flip-flops, sandals without a heel strap, or even shirtless. The logic is that such attire can impede your ability to control the vehicle safely. But just imagine arguing with an officer that your choice of footwear is perfectly adequate for driving. It turns the carefree freedom of a summer drive into a checklist of potential violations. 12. What if the government, not your parents, enforced your bedtime? For years, this was the strange reality for young gamers in South Korea. Their controversial shutdown law automatically booted anyone under the age of 16 from most popular online games between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. The stated goal was to combat a perceived epidemic of gaming addiction and ensure kids got enough sleep. It was a massive state-level intervention into family life, turning gaming companies into unwilling digital babysitters and forcing a generation of kids to get creative with their online habits. 13. Everyone loves free Wi-Fi. You see an open network, you connect. It's a simple act. In Singapore, that simple act could be a crime. Connecting to someone else's unsecured Wi-Fi network without their explicit permission is considered hacking under the country's computer misuse laws. That free internet you just hopped on to check your email could, in theory, lead to a massive fine or even jail time. It's a law that forces you to think twice before you connect. 14. In Denmark, naming your baby isn't just a personal choice, it's a government-regulated act. There's an official list of about 7,000 approved names, and if yours isn't on it, you'll need special permission. The reason? To protect children from names that could cause ridicule. Names like Pluto or Monkey have been rejected. For Americans used to naming their kids after fruit, cities, or Game of Thrones characters, this law feels like a bureaucratic assault on creativity at birth. 15. The British government has a plan for everything, including a way to avoid the logistical nightmare of your untimely death. It is illegal to die within the Houses of Parliament. This isn't rooted in some ancient superstition. It's pure, cold bureaucracy. According to tradition, anyone who passes away inside the Palace of Westminster is technically entitled to a full state funeral. To avoid the massive expense and ceremony for just anyone, they simply made it illegal. It's a brilliant solution that raises one hilarious question. How exactly do you plan on punishing the offender? 16. Imagine going out for a nice anniversary dinner. You order a bottle of wine. After your wife finishes her first glass, the waiter politely informs her that she's had her legal limit. This isn't a fever dream. It's a law on the books in La Paz, Bolivia. Married women are legally permitted to consume only one glass of wine in a public bar or restaurant. The archaic reasoning? A belief that any more alcohol could make them morally flexible. Her husband, meanwhile, can order as many as he likes. It's a stunningly sexist rule that has somehow survived into the modern age. 17. In Canada, you are perfectly free to be a witch, a wizard, or a sorcerer. The government has no problem with that. What is illegal, however, is pretending to practice witchcraft to commit fraud. Section 365 of the Criminal Code doesn't target actual magic. It targets people who con others by claiming to have magical powers. This creates a spectacular legal paradox. To secure a conviction, a prosecutor would essentially have to stand up in court and prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant doesn't actually have supernatural abilities. Could you imagine that trial? 18. In Italy, especially in some towns in Tuscany, it's illegal to hang your laundry out to dry on balconies that face the main street. The goal is to maintain the aesthetic integrity of historic town centers. That means your bedsheets or underwear fluttering in the breeze could be seen as a civic offense. For Americans used to suburban clotheslines and backyard drying, the idea that sunlight and fresh air require a permit is both baffling and hilarious. It's small-town charm with big city enforcement. 19. For most Americans, getting a driver's license is a fundamental rite of passage. It's a key to independence, a symbol of growing up. Now, try to imagine that entire concept being denied to half the population based purely on their gender. Until June of 2018, Saudi Arabia was the only country left on Earth where women were legally banned from driving. The repeal of this law was a monumental event celebrated worldwide, but its very existence into the 21st century is a powerful and sobering lesson in how differently basic freedoms can be defined. 20. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of speech, protecting even ideas that are unpopular or offensive to the majority. Now, consider the polar opposite in Russia. A 2013 law makes it a crime to distribute propaganda of non-traditional sexual relationships to minors. The language is so intentionally vague that it has been used as a legal sledgehammer to ban pride parades, arrest activists holding rainbow flags, and effectively silence any public discussion of LGBTQ+ rights and equality. It's a chilling example of how law can be weaponized to try and erase an entire community from public life. 21. In Greece, high heels are banned at ancient historical sites. The reasoning? Pointy shoes can chip away at the fragile stone. So if you're planning a dramatic outfit for your Instagram shoot at the Acropolis, make sure your footwear is archaeologist approved. The law may sound overly protective, but it's a reminder that cultural preservation sometimes means sacrificing fashion. Americans used to no shirt, no service might be surprised to find no stilettos at the ruins as a legal dress code. 22. Your home is your castle. It's the one place on Earth you should be able to relax and do whatever you want, right? Well, not if your castle is in Singapore and you've forgotten to close the curtains. It is illegal to walk around your own home naked if you are visible to the public. This isn't about what you do. It's about who might see you do it. The law falls under the category of public nuisance, effectively turning your living room into a potential crime scene. You're not just breaking the law by being naked, you're breaking it by being naked with poor window management. 23. You've seen it in a dozen romantic comedies. The dramatic moment when a forgotten love bursts through the church doors screaming, "I object," just before the final vows. It's a classic trope. If you tried that in Australia, however, your grand romantic gesture would likely be interrupted by the police. Under their Summary Offences Act, it is a specific and punishable crime to intentionally disrupt a wedding, funeral, or any other religious service. So much for cinematic drama. Your big moment could end with a fine and a court date. 24. You're on vacation in the tropical paradise of Thailand. It's 100 degrees in the shade, and you've just rented a scooter to explore. The first, most logical thing to do is take your shirt off to catch a breeze. That's a mistake. It is illegal in Thailand to operate any vehicle, a car, a motorcycle, even a scooter, while shirtless. This isn't a safety rule. It's a law about public decency and cultural respect. It's a classic tourist trap that perfectly illustrates the clash between Western ideas of casualness and more conservative local customs. 25. In Denmark, it's illegal to start your car and leave it idling unattended, even in your own driveway. The law was introduced to reduce pollution and promote responsibility, but it creates a strange situation where warming up your car on a cold morning could technically make you a criminal. For Americans used to remote starting their engines from the comfort of their kitchen, this feels like eco-friendly micromanagement gone a bit too far. 26. For a very long time, if you were an unmarried couple living together in Ireland, you were technically breaking the law. It was illegal for unwed partners to cohabitate. This wasn't some forgotten medieval rule. It was a reflection of the country's deeply conservative Catholic roots, and it stayed on the books well into the modern era. While it was rarely enforced in its later years, it stood as a powerful symbol of a society where personal relationships were subject to state and religious approval. Imagine having to hide your relationship not from your parents, but from your government. 27. If you find yourself on a beach in the province of Ericlia, near Venice, Italy, don't even think about building a sandcastle. Seriously, a local ordinance bans the construction of sandcastles, citing that they can obstruct passage along the shoreline. This isn't about safety or environmental protection. It's about ensuring a clear walking path. It represents a level of bureaucratic orderliness so extreme that it has declared war on one of the most innocent and universal joys of childhood. Kicking over a kid's sandcastle might be mean, but here, building one is the actual crime. 28. In South Africa, you have the legal right to attach a flamethrower to your car for anti-hijacking purposes. This is not a joke. Following a surge in violent carjackings, a company developed a device called the blaster, which shoots jets of fire from under the car doors. The authorities deemed it legal, classifying it not as a weapon, but as a security device. It is perhaps the most extreme, Mad Max-style solution to a public safety problem anywhere in the world. Could you imagine that on a list of optional extras from a car dealership? 29. The laws of physics are usually pretty reliable. But in the city of Turin, Italy, they get a little help from the law. A local regulation requires dog owners to walk their dogs at least 3 times a day. If you don't, you could face a hefty fine. The city council decided that the well-being of its canine citizens was a matter of public policy. While the intention is noble, it creates a strange scenario where your dog's bathroom schedule is legally mandated. It gives a whole new meaning to the phrase, the long arm of the law. 30. The United Arab Emirates takes privacy and reputation incredibly seriously, especially online. It is a criminal offense to swear at someone over a messaging app like WhatsApp. It falls under the country's cybercrime laws. People have been fined, deported, and even jailed for using profane language in a private digital conversation. For an American, whose entire online existence is likely seasoned with a healthy dose of profanity, this is a terrifying thought. Your angry text to a friend could become evidence in a criminal case. 31. Let's say you're a politician in Brazil and you get convicted of corruption. Your punishment might not be just jail time, but a ficha limpa, which means clean slate. The clean slate law makes any politician convicted of a serious crime ineligible to run for office for 8 years. It was passed after a massive public petition with millions of signatures. It's a powerful tool designed to prevent corrupt officials from simply waiting out their sentence and returning to power. It's a level of accountability many Americans would probably love to see at home. 32. For years, it was virtually impossible to get a divorce in the Philippines. It was, along with the Vatican, one of only 2 sovereign states in the world without a legal provision for divorce. The country's powerful Catholic influence meant that marriage was considered an unbreakable sacrament. While the laws are slowly changing, for generations of Filipinos, a bad marriage was a life sentence with no legal way out. It's a profound clash between civil law and religious doctrine that has impacted millions of lives. 33. If you're a parent in Sweden, there's one thing you absolutely cannot do: spank your child. Sweden was the first country in the world to ban all forms of corporal punishment of children way back in 1979. This includes spanking, slapping, or any act intended to cause physical pain. The law is about protecting children's rights and promoting non-violent parenting. For many Americans raised in a culture where spanking is still a debated form of discipline, this absolute ban is a radical redefinition of parental authority. 34. Singapore is famous for its clean, orderly society, and it achieves this with a lot of rules. One of the most surprising is that it's illegal to feed pigeons. The act is considered a public nuisance that contributes to the birds' overpopulation and the spread of disease. You can be hit with a significant fine for tossing a few breadcrumbs to your feathered friends. It's a perfect example of Singapore's philosophy. Every small act of disorder is a threat to the greater public good. 35. What happens when you owe the government money in Belgium? They can get creative. The country has a system where bailiffs can legally seize and sell a portion of a debtor's furniture to cover their unpaid taxes or fines. They can't take essentials like your bed or kitchen table, but that designer sofa or antique bookshelf is fair game. Imagine coming home to find a legal notice saying your living room decor is about to be auctioned off by the tax authority. It's a very direct and personal form of asset seizure. 36. For many Americans, Sunday is the designated day for home improvement. It's the day you finally mow the lawn, hang those shelves, or fire up the leaf blower. But if you tried to do any of that in Germany, you could get a visit from the police. The country has a legally protected Ruhezeit, or quiet time. On Sundays and public holidays, it is illegal to make loud noises. This includes lawn mowing, drilling, hammering, and in many apartment buildings, even running a loud vacuum cleaner. It's a legally mandated day of peace and quiet, a right your neighbors can and will enforce. It's a level of enforced community consideration that would drive a Home Depot-loving American absolutely bonkers. 37. Everyone knows it's a bad idea to drink and drive. But what about drink and cycle? In Germany, you can lose your driver's license for riding a bicycle while intoxicated. The legal blood alcohol limit for cyclists is lower than for drivers in some American states. If you're caught, the authorities can decide you are unfit to operate any vehicle, including a car, and revoke your license on the spot. It's a serious reminder that in Germany, road safety rules apply to you, even when you only have 2 wheels. 38. Until 2015, it was illegal for pubs in Ireland to open on Good Friday. For 90 years, this was one of the only 2 days of the year, the other being Christmas, when the entire country went dry. It was a nationwide law rooted in deep religious tradition. The holy hour became a source of national legend, with people stocking up the day before as if preparing for a national disaster. Its repeal marked a major cultural shift in a country rapidly moving away from its conservative past. 39. In Japan, companies can be held legally responsible for their employees dying from overwork. The phenomenon is so common, it has its own word, karoshi. If a court determines that an employee's death from a stroke, heart attack, or suicide was caused by an excessive workload, their family can sue the employer for damages. This has led to laws limiting overtime and forcing companies to ensure their employees take vacation. It's a sobering legal recognition that a job can literally kill you. 40. There is a place in France where UFOs are officially banned. The small wine-making town of Châteauneuf-du-Pape passed a municipal decree in 1954 outlawing the flying, landing, or takeoff of flying saucers or flying cigars. The law was a brilliant publicity stunt that brought worldwide fame to the town's wine, and it has never been repealed. This means any curious alien visitors planning a wine tour of France must check local zoning ordinances first, lest their intergalactic journey end with their spaceship getting a parking ticket. 41. In Western Australia, it is illegal to possess more than 50 kilograms of potatoes at one time if you're not a licensed grower or seller. This bizarre law dates back to the mid-20th century, when the government tried to control the potato trade through the Potato Marketing Corporation. Yes, a real potato police force existed to inspect and seize illicit spuds. For Americans who freely buy Costco-sized bags of everything, The idea of being stopped for potato smuggling sounds like something straight out of a parody sketch. But it's the law. 42. France takes its cheese so seriously that it has wrapped it in layers of legal protection. Under the Appellation d'origine contrôlée, or AOC system, a cheese like Roquefort can only be called Roquefort if it's made from the milk of a specific breed of sheep and aged in the natural caves of Roquefort-sur-Soulzon. This isn't just a recommendation, it's the law. This system creates a kind of cheese police that protects the honor and integrity of hundreds of traditional products. You think the FDA is strict? Try telling a French official your Wisconsin brie is the real deal. 43. In New Zealand, it's illegal to fly a kite in a public park without the permission of the local council if it reaches a certain height. Some parks require permits once your kite crosses about 50 feet. The rule aims to prevent interference with drones, birds, and other park activities. Imagine wanting a simple pastime and suddenly you're filling out forms, kite flying by committee, Kiwi style. 44. Tossing a coin into Rome's Trevi fountain is a tourist rite of passage, but trying to take one out is a serious crime. The fountain is not a public piggy bank. Every night, the city collects the thousands of dollars worth of coins that have been thrown in during the day. And here's the amazing part. That money is donated to a charity that helps the city's needy. So if you were ever tempted to fish out a few euros, you wouldn't just be breaking the law, you'd be stealing from a fund meant to feed the poor, under the watchful eye of the god of the sea. 45. Today, a beard is just a style choice. But in 18th century Russia, under Peter the Great, it was a political statement and a source of tax revenue. As part of his push to modernize and westernize his country, the emperor imposed a beard tax. Any man who wished to keep his beard had to pay up and was given a special token as a proof of payment. It was a government-led war on facial hair, an attempt to literally shave the old traditions off his subjects' faces. Imagine getting audited by the IRS over your 5 o'clock shadow. 46. For most Americans, reliable home internet is a basic utility like water or electricity. Now, imagine if having a private Wi-Fi connection in your house was illegal. For years, that was the case for most citizens in Cuba. The government maintained a strict monopoly on telecommunications, limiting access to absurdly expensive, state-controlled hotspots in public parks. It was a stark example of information control, turning access to the modern world, something we take for granted, into a privilege reserved for the few, and a crime for the many. 47. Most American cities have departments for sanitation, transportation, and public works. But for over 20 years, the city of Christchurch, New Zealand, had something else entirely on its payroll: an official, state-sanctioned wizard. After a university tried to remove a popular public speaker named Ian Brackenbury Channel, public outcry led the Prime Minister to ask the city to appoint him the Wizard of Christchurch. He was paid a modest salary to provide acts of wizardry and other wizard-like services. Imagine trying to create a line item in a US city budget for sorcery and public divination. The paperwork alone would be cursed. 48. In the US, if you want your kid to play soccer, you sign a waiver and you're done. In France, prepare for a trip to the doctor. For many school sports and clubs, it is a legal requirement to obtain a certificate medical, a formal medical certificate from a doctor, stating that your child is physically fit to participate. This isn't just for elite competition. It can apply to basic gym classes. It's an extra layer of bureaucracy and expense born from a different philosophy of liability, turning a simple sign-up into a medical appointment. 49. In the modern world, settling a dispute usually involves lawyers. In Paraguay, however, there's another more dramatic option that is technically legal: dueling. Yes, you can challenge someone to a formal duel. But there's a brilliantly morbid catch. To participate, both parties must be registered blood donors. The logic, if you can call it that, seems to be that if you're going to engage in an activity that might result in someone needing a blood transfusion, you should do your part to contribute to the supply first. All right, we've navigated 49 pieces of legislative madness, and there's just one left. But before we get to our grand finale, it's time for the final verdict. Our award for the most gloriously absurd law on today's list goes to New Zealand for putting an official wizard on the government payroll. It wins because it's the perfect fusion of the mundane and the magical. Just try to imagine the bureaucracy. Are spells a tax-deductible expense? What's the retirement plan for a sorcerer? The sheer logistical nightmare of making magic an official city job is simply unbeatable. Do you agree? Let us know your verdict in the comments. And now, for our final number. 50. In the United States, television is either free over the air or a service you choose to buy from a company. But in the United Kingdom, the simple act of watching live TV on any channel, not just the BBC, requires you to pay for a government-mandated TV license. This isn't a subscription, it's a tax, and it's enforced by a dedicated agency with detector vans that supposedly roam the streets, hunting for unlicensed television viewers. Failure to pay isn't a civil matter. It can lead to a criminal conviction and a hefty fine. So imagine this. You're sitting on your couch watching the Super Bowl, and you get a threatening letter because you didn't pay your mandatory television tax. It's a system that turns the most common pastime on Earth into a potential crime scene. So there you have it. These laws are more than just bizarre rules. They're a strange and hilarious reflection of our history, our fears, and our often clumsy attempts to control the world around us. From protecting donkeys in bathtubs to regulating the afterlife, they prove that when it comes to human logic, anything is possible. So we have to ask, what's the one unwritten rule in your city or country that you think should be a real law? We'll be reading your proposals in the comments. For more journeys into legislative insanity, make sure you're subscribed. We'll see you for the next one.